Good morning everyone and welcome back to a brand new video of Fox Flicks On, the Film Fist. Today we're checking out a brand new video, so today we'll be trying to see which Pixar movie has the most deaths. Now, if you're wondering why they're doing this, I mean they did for Disney. They found out that Dinosaur had the most deaths, so why not Pixar? Let's hop in and see which movie is somehow the greatest in bloodshed. Let's go.
Which Pixar film has the most death? If you added up all of the deaths we see across the 29 Pixar animated movies, which film would come out as the deadliest? Would it be the one about the guy who travels through the afterlife? Or maybe the one about killing superheroes? Or maybe the deadliest Pixar film is the one you didn't expect?
What? I actually have no idea what it could be. It's definitely not going to be
Hello,
Coco.
Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that asks, what if YouTubers had feelings? And sure make me happy if you clicked that subscribe button. Ah, shucks! Thanks, guys! Yeah, okay, I know. Today we're talking about Pixar, but not the happy-go-lucky nature of the movies. No, instead, I want to see just how deadly they are. See, several years ago, in the before times, we here at Film Theory counted up all of the deaths in the Disney animated canon, which we actually updated last year to correct a few mistakes and tally up the new movies. But long story short, there were a lot of deaths in Disney's animated canon, and I thought it would be fun to bring the exact same nerdy overthinking and frame-by-frame analysis to the wonderful worlds of Pixar. Did I just want an excuse to rewatch all of Pixar's stuff? Maybe, but today I wanted to go through all 29 movies in the Pixar canon to figure out just how many kills this lovable lamp has.
Through all of these movies, the only one I would say that would even have a chance of being the actual, highest is possibly hold on.
Its name. And which Pixar film is the...
There we go. So now that I got a better chance to actually look at them, I would say the one that has the highest kill count is actually probably going to be the Incredibles, because of all the heroes that were murdered in it. Aside from that, and let's see, you have Charles Muntz and maybe a few dogs. So you got that one army character who was blown up. You got Hopper. Oh, no, not Lotso. Oh, wait, no, Lotso was over here. Stinky Pete? No, he only had bound. Randall? Nope, not dead. And Finding Nemo? Only one, and there was that anglerfish way at the end. Calls? 0. Ratatouille? Technically 2. Because there was Luigi Linguini's mom, and then the fat chef, I forget his name. And Wall-E, technically 0 on screen. You got 1, you got 0, you got... you actually have a few in Calls, because Calls 2, because it's a spy movie. Technically you have a few in Brave, but then you got none here, none here. You only have 4 here. None here. None. Technically, you got 2, or 2.5 if you want to count what happens with Miguel. You got 0, 0. Technically 1, even though he does kind of reappear. 1, but it's not permanent. 0, 0. Never actually seen it. 0, 0, and never actually watched it. So, yeah, Incredibles is going to be the highest bet, I bet.
The deadliest. But okay, before we start counting up these sweet, juicy kills, a sentence I'm now regretting saying because it's out there and will be clipped on the internet forever, we need to establish our rules. Similar to how we approached the Disney Death Count series, not all kills are created equally, so more or less we're going to be using the exact same rule set we established in that series. Rule number 1, only deaths from creatures who are able to speak or otherwise think or feel will be included. While an ant getting squished is no doubt tragic, for the ant. Unless that ant is from A Bug's Life or something similar, it's not going to be showing up on our kill count. The bugs from A Bug's Life Ant-Man are way different from the ones from, say, The Incredibles or whatever, because they are actual characters with motivation and sentience. Rule number 2, we're only counting deaths that actually happen during the runtime of the movie. So while Darla from Finding Nemo is essentially the Grim Reaper of the aquatic world, since none of her fish fatalities occurred during the film, they won't count for our list today. That's only one example example,
That's
but
zero.
you get it. Rule number 3, we're only counting deaths that occur as a result of characters or events that happen in the movie. Like, the opening scene of Up takes place over several decades, and while presumably millions or even billions of people died in the world during that time span, well, for us, the only death that matters for our purposes
Would be
is
Ellie.
I still cry every time. Rule number 4,
same, man.
if a character
No
dies
shame in
but
that.
is then brought back to life with some Pixar pixie dust, that doesn't count. And finally, rule number 5, we're only taking movies made by Pixar into account here, not spin-offs or sequels made by other studios, or the Disney Plus shows Pixar was forced to make. So, sorry Planes or the Toy Story holiday specials, you guys don't count. Other than that, if a death happens in any one of the 29 Pixar films, it's good enough to make it into our Pixar graveyard. With these rules, not only will we be able to tally up the kill count for each individual film, but we'll keep a running tally to see if Pixar can come anywhere close to the mountain of bodies that Daddy Disney ended up building higher than Cinderella's castle. So get your tissues ready and prepare to cry, loyal theorists, as we jump into this like a desk lamp onto a letter. So right off the bat, let's start with the movies that don't actually have any death in them. Yeah, unlike Disney, where almost all of their movies have at least one death, Pixar's filmography is a lot more tame. A whopping 11 of the 29 Pixar films are completely killless, even though it does feel like some of them should have some kills. For example, there are 0 deaths that I could count anywhere in Soul. Yeah, the movie that literally had...
Yeah, see, I didn't count... I even said when I was going over this one 0, because this man's whole journey is to, put his soul back in his body. And he isn't even dead on Earth. Well, he's near dead, hooked up to hospital machines, but still technically alive.
Our main character die within the first 10 minutes of the film technically has no deaths in it. Yeah, I know that's a weird sentence, but, well, if we're getting technical, which I mean, this is film theory, of course we're getting technical, Joe doesn't actually die at the start of the film. After falling down a manhole cover, he slips into a coma and his body is clinging to life in the hospital while his soul traverses the great before. Thankfully for Joe, his soul returns to his body at the end of the film, so even if he did die, it gets reversed. So it doesn't count based on rule number 4. For all the other souls we see in the film, they're already dead by the time they show up in the plot, so their deaths technically don't occur during the movie and thus are excluded via rule 2. And don't think I didn't remember the cat. In the movie, Joe's soul ends up possessing a therapy cat, temporarily booting the cat's soul out of its body. But all of the souls are inevitably returned to their rightful bodies by the credits.
Yeah,
so
thank
the movie
goodness.
All About Death actually ends up having a big whole goose egg on the death counter. At this point, with the lack of kills in these Pixar movies, they must have some crazy protection here. Like, are they getting protected by the partner for today's theory, NordVPN? Another surprise for me? Ratatouille. In the movie, both of Linguini's parents, including Chef Cousteau...
Okay, so, yeah, this one does technically have 2. Well, 3, because, yeah, I actually forgot about Linguini's father.
Dead. But since
I mean, the man he calls Dad.
Their deaths happen before the movie begins? Well, they don't count. This is also why I'm not including the hanging rat corpses shown to Remy as well. They were that way before the movie started, and we don't see any of the other rats die. In Toy Story 2, despite the toys' best efforts to add vehicular manslaughter to their rap sheets, surprisingly, everyone also makes it out of that movie unscathed. In Toy Story 4, there is one toy that ends up getting ripped in half thanks to a cat, but a few minutes later we see the other half of it kicking it in the club. Well, not kicking it, but he is still
punching
alive. At least the last time we see him. The rest of the films that occupy the no-kill list are Monsters, Inc. and Monsters University, Luca, Turning Red, Inside Out 2, Cars, and Cars 3. Yes, you'll definitely have noticed a few gaps in there.
Oh yeah, kind of actually did forget about an Inside Out.
But don't worry, we will get to those. But so far, Pixar Graveyard is looking mighty empty. Come on, Pixar, it's free real estate in there. So enough talk about deaths that don't count. Let's get into some real kills now. And what better place to start than with the first kill we ever see in a Pixar film from their very first movie, the original Toy Story.
See, there it is.
Yeah, while this scene looks G-rated at first glance, let's stop to actually think about the implications of what we're seeing here. Remember, this is Toy Story, and in this series, every single toy on planet Earth, even ones made from craft supplies, are living, sentient creatures. And sure, while some playthings like balls or musical instruments appear to be inanimate, real, proper toys are always considered to be alive and self-aware. That, no doubt, includes our little G.I. Joe knockoff here. Well, that is until he gets popped
Well, it's an
by
army,
an
man.
enemy.
You
Rest
can
easy,
just call it
soldier.
that.
You may be the first Pixar death, but you certainly won't be the last. And hey, while we're on the subject, we might as well round out the Toy Story series here. Well, at least until Toy Story 5 comes out a little later this year. Like, seriously, another one? I can't wait to see how these toys make me cry again. Anyway, there's one more big death in this franchise that I want to discuss because you might have missed this one on your first watch through. See, near the beginning of Toy Story 3, this toy train gets absolutely decimated by a sugar-crazed toddler. Now, we're gonna count this train as a character since it's shown alongside other toys that we know are sentient, like Jessie, Slinky, and Mr. Potato Head. So,
but wait, it technically doesn't have a face. And I know in the world of toys, that can kind of be like a gray area and all, but think about it, almost every other toy ever shown had some kind of face. Even if Mr. Potato Head's face is removable. But yeah, it seems like to be technically a living toy in the Toy Story universe, it has to be with a face. I mean, there's literally that phone on wheels that has a face.
Pixar is clearly trying to put this train on the same level as those main characters. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, some toys in this world can be beat up pretty
like Hooker. Okay, I forgot about Hooker.
Bad, but not necessarily die because
I forgot
of
about
it.
her.
But we're still going to count this one because later on in the film, we see the custodial staff throwing it away. And as we're told in the movie,
there's only one way toys leave this place. Poor fella. Trash truck comes at dawn.
The implication here is that
Poor
the
fella.
only way
Okay,
toys
he was
leave
alive.
preschool is in a body bag. So I think it's fair to assume that our little Thomas the Tank Engine friend is a goner. Poor fella. Add him to the counter. Man, we are nearly halfway through the Pixar catalog and our kill count
only at
is at
2.
You know, I'm more shocked than anything. I thought this would be way higher. Anyway, let's move on to Brave to see if we can change your fate.
Wait a minute, what did he say it's at? Well, hold on. If you have uphill counted, that should actually be 3 then, because of Charles Muntz. And Ellie, technically.
I'm hopeful that this one will get us a lot of kills because of its more fantasy sword and sorcery nature.
Probably
so
only
the main
one then with
antagonist
Mordo.
of Brave is Mordo, once
Mordo,
a
my
legendary
mistake.
prince, now cursed to be a ravenous bear after consuming an evil potion. And at the end of Brave, Mordo is defeated and his soul is released, letting us count this as a kill. So Brave edges its name onto the death counter with... Wait, just one kill? That's it? Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next here? What about the good dinosaur? Remember this one? No? I mean, fair, this was probably one of Pixar's first...
I think this one would only have maybe 4 in it, the dinosaurs like family.
Real misses. But this movie is still deadly. And I have high hopes for this because Disney's Dinosaur ended up being like the most deadly movie there for ages. Anyway, so early on in the film, we see our main character Arlo's dad get swept away in a flash flood, and no amount of talking to him as a spirit is going to bring him back. So yeah, that's 1 kill right there. In fact, we might very well have our first multi-kill movie on the board here. In the movie's climax, Arlo is forced to go toe-to-wing with a bunch of pterodactyls in order to save his friend Spot. And working together, they're actually able to dispatch these guys one by one by knocking them into the river. And I mean, come on, they have to drown here, right?
Damn,
so that's
good throw.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more deaths. Is what I would be saying if the creator didn't confirm that they survived on Twitter.
He survived.
Disappointing! So, yeah, that's 1 total kill for the good dinosaur.
Okay, I guess
Alrighty
my
then.
count was
Then
off.
what about,
Look, a lot of these movies I either haven't seen or haven't watched in years. So just give me a break, okay, people? I'm sorry.
Finding Dory. Maybe there's multiple kills here. Listen, guys, I'm starting to get desperate. Well, near the start of the movie, Dory, Marlin, and Nemo are being chased by a giant squid and are about to become casualties of their own right before a shipping container falls and crushes the squid. Now, to be fair, it's not totally clear that the squid dies, and these sorts of squids and octopods are known for their ability to compress their bodies. But we do see his little tentacles like curl up all Wicked Witch of the East style, certainly implying a death here, even if it is cartoonish. And let's be real, these shipping containers are heavy, even when they're empty. For real, they can weigh anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds, or 1,800 to 2,200 kilos. Even a giant squid isn't likely coming back after getting squished by that.
Yeah,
so
no, that's a
one
pancake.
death for Finding Dory. Not too far underwater with that one, huh? And speaking of water, let's move on to the breakout hit, Elemental. Now, of course, the movie ends with a flood that completely ravaged ravages through Firetown, which might have caused a few deaths. But we don't actually see any of those potential casualties, so we can't really account for them, which sucks. I thought we would have our first multi-kill movie here. Either way, there's also
Apparently
a part
not.
where one of our leads, Wade, evaporates and dies, but then comes back to life just
they
a
just
few
collect
minutes
them.
later, so that doesn't count either. In fact, the only confirmed death in Elemental comes in a flashback where we see Ember's grandmother go out.
Poof.
So just the one for Elemental. Next up,
Okay.
we got Incredibles
fine,
2.
one then.
Yeah, a bit conspicuous that we're not talking about Incredibles 1 yet, but just hold your horses, I promise, we'll get there. Anyway, this series is one
Yeah. Incredibles is definitely gonna be classed as the most bloodiest. It's because of all the heroes that were killed by Syndrome, plus Syndrome's kill himself.
all about superheroes and hasn't shied away from the reality
See?
of what bad guys would actually do. So how does the sequel fare in our kill count? Is it deadly? Well, early on in Incredibles 2, we see the death of Mr. Deaver, father of Winston and Evelyn. So yeah, that's one death right there. And later on,
Yeah,
their
that's
mother
one.
also died from a, quote, broken heart, but we don't see that happen, so we can't count it because of rule number 2.
Yeah,
so,
has to happen
just
on
one
screen.
kill for the Incredibles
Kind of.
2. I kind of thought that one would be higher given the first movie. Spoilers there. But we can't dwell on it because we have to move onward to Onward. Yeah, so I know
Great
some of
movie.
you are probably sitting there wondering, huh? I don't remember this one, which is an absolute shame.
I
because
love
this is a
Onward.
really
It's a
sweet
good
film
movie.
that was absolutely decapitated because it came out just a week before the plague lockdown in March of 2020. Anyway, Onward took the idea of swords and sorcery and Dungeons and Dragons and put it in a modern setting.
Just
And
reality.
The whole plot is about the main characters reviving their dead dad for a day to hang out with them. So surely there are some deaths in here. Well, maybe
No.
not. The dad does
Yeah.
die again in this movie after his time back in the land of the living, which
I mean, the Phoenix Gem, as stated in the movie, can only last 24 hours when used. So that was it. You get one Phoenix Gem, you get 1 day back on Earth. But as you can probably tell, the whole point of the movie is that they messed up, they didn't really get to use it properly, so instead of them having the father for a day, they had half the father for the day.
we're gonna count because, you know, why not?
Oh, but Fox, what about right there at the end when he was whole? They had to go on a quest which still literally took a whole day just to get another Phoenix Gem to bring back his other half, which only lasted, as you saw, a couple minutes. And so, yeah, unless they can find a third Phoenix Gem, which isn't likely, they'll shit out of luck of being able to see their dad.
But other than that, well, there is a dragon that gets slain at the end of the movie, but it's a magic dragon made up from a pile of rubble animated by a curse. So it doesn't really meet our requirements of being sentient, so yeah,
Yeah.
only one for Onward. Like, really? Dang. Believe it or not, but we're nearly 2/3 through these Pixar flicks, and we have a grand total of 8 deaths so far, with an 8-way tie for first place. If Pixar hopes to catch up with the depravity that is Disney, we're gonna
boy.
have to start carving up some real headstones and fast. But don't you worry, things are going to get deadlier from here on out. Trust me, I was getting worried too. And the best way to drive up that kill
Okay,
count,
here we
at
go.
least just a little bit, well, it's up. Obviously, we all know about Ellie's death in the first 10 minutes, and what
Yep.
can only be described as the saddest scene in cinematic history. But
It
there's a
still
lot
makes
more
me
death in this
sad.
movie than you might remember. Why? Well, originally
Those
I thought
two.
I found something pretty clever. During one scene, the villain Muntz is monologuing to Carl and Russell, and we see a collection of 9 headgears of previous explorers he dealt with as trophies on display. That would be 9 deaths, right? Well,
No,
while the deaths
because we
are
never
implied,
saw it
they
on
happened
screen.
off screen and not during the events of the movie. So
Exactly.
sadly, we can't count them. But since Muntz himself meets his
Yeah,
well-deserved
the only deaths in this movie is Ellie and Muntz.
demise at the
It's
end of the
2.
film, that means we have finally broken the tie and have our first multi-kill movie. Break out the party
With only
streamers, gang.
2.
We did it! And you know what else gets this honor?
Okay.
Pixar's latest release, Elio. If you haven't seen this movie, because yikes, nobody did, Elio is the story of a young boy who dreams of being abducted by aliens. Hashtag relatable. Spoiler, but Elio does get abducted by aliens, and he gets to see all of the advanced creatures and their technology. And among that
Wow.
technology is the ability to create clones of sentient beings. This one was tricky.
Except I,
and
though.
honestly, I could see it going either way. It's definitely implied that the clones were designed to die after they were no longer needed, and they didn't seem too upset about it when both clones do eventually bite the dust. But they are also able to speak, feel, and make decisions. So based on our criteria that we've established, they
Okay.
should count towards the deaths
I guess we
here.
can
Heck,
count
if
them.
we counted the clone army from Ralph Breaks the Internet, I mean, come on, these guys...
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. That's what took the first place for the Disney movie. I think it's been a while. I should rewatch that video.
absolutely need to count too. So that's 2 right there. Additionally, they mentioned something called the Blood War going on elsewhere in the galaxy, and one of the alien species is described as, quote, killing machines. But we don't actually
Cool.
see any of this to get the full context, so
Damn.
I don't think it's right to count that. Oh, and also the reason Elio is so obsessed with aliens is because his parents were killed and he feels alone, but that happens before the movie starts, so that's not gonna count either. Same thing with the
Oh
skeleton.
wait, so that military-looking woman he was with is not his mom? Huh. I guess it could be an aunt or something.
And Elio finds in the brig of the alien ship. He was dead long before the
Damn
movie
it.
started. So that's just 2 for Elio, tying it for first place and putting our overall Pixar kill count at just 12. Kind of underwhelming for a film about a whole galaxy and something called a blood war, but maybe we'll find more luck with Bug's Life. Well, maybe, maybe not, because when I actually
Yeah.
sat down to rewatch this, these bugs are hella tough. Case in point, a flea survives being absolutely torched by a pile of matches, and literally just a minute later, we see a fly go full speed into a bug
Oh,
zapper,
yeah.
and he seems like he survives.
There's literally only one death in this movie. Papa.
It's so beautiful.
Does that sound like someone who's dying? My man is having the time of his life. And on top of that, real-life insects have a notoriously high resistance to fall damage, so I don't think we can count this one. But all that said, there are deaths still here to count in this film. Early on, Hopper kills 3 of his grasshopper goons by crushing them under a mountain of food
Oh.
to make a point about the power of the masses.
All they
You know,
dead?
eat the rich and all that stuff. And then, of course,
Huh.
Hopper gets his comeuppance when Flick tricks him into becoming Birdchaser.
Yeah, hold on. Those 3 from back at the food bar, I didn't ever actually count them as dead, even when I was watching the movie. Just buried underneath food. And so, trapped, stuck, but not dead. Would just take some time to pull them out.
Not only does this move A Bug's Life to the top of our Pixar kill count leaderboard, but it also brings our total so far to 16. Okay, you know
I'm
what
not
we
sure.
really need at this point? Something to just jumpstart our kill count into the next level, you know? Into like the next life. And surely Coco, a movie about the Day of the Dead celebration, must be filled with deaths
Nope,
galore.
3.
I mean, this film has the opportunity for people to die twice,
That's
potentially
it.
getting us some real numbers. Well, maybe, but it's also like...
Wait, are you counting the true death as a death? Well, in that case, then the movie would jump to 4.
Less than you might expect. We see Ernesto get crushed by a bell in the opening few minutes, and later we flash back to Hector dying from poison. And then there's Chicharron, who, despite already being dead, disappears from the land of the dead because...
That's final death.
Forgotten. When there's no one left in the living world who remembers you, you disappear from this world. We call it the final death.
Man, that's like super death. And since
Super
the
death.
characters refer
Sorry,
to this
sorry.
as the final death themselves, we're going to count it. And finally, we see in the epilogue that Grandmama Coco has died from old age. So yeah, despite
Truly
having
is
a
a
bunch
shame.
of dead characters, this movie all about Dia de los Muertos has an overall kill count of only 4, tying it with
Yeah,
A Bug's Life and
it is.
bringing our overall count to 20. Okay, we are starting to run short on films here, and we barely have enough deaths to make an interesting true crime podcast. What else
We
can
have
we look at here to
nothing.
just kick this into overdrive? Well, okay, how about we talk about a movie that has nearly as many deaths as the first 23 films we've talked about combined. And would you guess that that movie is Cars 2? Yeah, really. See, if
Yeah,
you've
that
never
one
watched
did have a
Cars
lot
2,
with
this
the
film
spy
is actually
stuff.
more of a spy thriller than anything else. And for some reason, it seemed intent to cover the death quota for the entire franchise. Let's get counting. In the film's
Yeah,
opening,
let's
Agent
go on.
Alan Turbo ends up getting compacted into a cube by the baddies, junkyard style, after his cover is blown. Similarly, Agent Rod Redline ends up being brutally tortured for information before being blasted by a ray gun, which bursts him into flames.
Explosion.
We're totally dead. But the majority of deaths are actually caused by Finn McMissile, the British hero spy with a ton of deadly gadgets designed specifically for dispatching bad guys. He releases an oil slick that causes one evil henchman to crash into the sea, kills another 12 when he sets off
Ooh.
explosives on a spiral tower, and then just brutally crushes 2 more cars in Japan using an an elevator. Finally, at the end of the movie,
I
he
forgot
ends up
about all
sinking a
that.
sapient ship with yet again more explosives. And so that brings our total kill count for Cars 2 to 18.
Okay,
Which
that's
obviously
pretty
moves
high.
Cars 2 into the lead and doubles our total death count to 38. Okay, how about a movie
Not
that got
completely
killed at the
double, but
box
still.
office next? Yeah, we're talking Lightyear. And you know what? This one is actually going to add another set of double digits to our kill count. Now, in terms of
Oh,
human
yeah?
deaths, there's only just one. Alicia Hawthorne, who dies of old age while waiting for Buzz to return home from his mission. However, she isn't the only thing that died in this film, but figuring out what to count was a little bit tough. For example, surely more people died of old age than we see in the film, but we can't count
Well,
that in good
obviously.
conscience, because I mean, we don't see them.
It's not on
Additionally,
screen.
while Buzz and his buddies do exterminate some of the local wildlife on this alien planet, these bugs and plants don't seem to reach our threshold of sentience, so they don't count either.
Yeah,
In
not
fact,
sentient,
most of the
not
deaths
talking.
that end up counting for Lightyear actually come from robots. First up, there's Sox, who sadly gets crushed by Zurg. And not
Oh,
one,
damn.
but two different Ivan AI autopilots that get destroyed when both Zurg and Buzz's ships get blown up. And then there's Zurg's robot henchmen. Now, this might seem controversial to count them, but we're going to for a couple of reasons.
I mean, Socks, I guess you could count him because his AI was a little more living, I guess you could say. But I'm not sure about Ivan or the Zogbots.
Firstly, they have the ability to communicate and express independent social behavior.
Never mind.
Just look at that side eye. That's absolutely sentient behavior. Plus, if we're counting Socks and the Ivans, I think we should count these guys too. Just because they're
Probably
evil
wouldn't be counting
robots
the
doesn't mean
Ivans
they're not
personally.
people, you know? Anyway, these robots are conveniently numbered 1 through 24 and are gradually destroyed throughout the film, with the remaining
Oh.
few going down at the end with Zurg's ship. So that brings Lightyear's tally up to 28 and our total count to 66 total Pixar deaths.
Okay,
And speaking of robots,
there we
I
go.
think it's time we jumped into the Pixar robot movie. So yeah, in WALL-E, we don't actually see any humans die, but
And even if you're gonna bring up robot, wait, the security bots. Go
just
on.
like we counted Socks, the robots here in this universe
It took
are
me a second.
clearly
I
sentient
forgot
beings
about
with
them.
character and personality. I mean, they talk either in English or like R2-D2 style beeps and boops, so they count for us, you know? So how many did we get? Well, our main villain, Otto, is switched off at the end of the movie, presumably never to be turned on again. So I mean, yeah, that's like him more or less dying, right? Similarly,
I would count that as a half death. Now, this guy, yeah, no, this is a full death. He gets just straight up obliterated.
Before Otto's
crushed.
right-hand bot is thrown out a window and
And
smashes onto the ground.
boom.
And if he's anything like a cell phone, that guy ain't turning on again. And then there are the steward bots, aka security. At first, these guys seem like
Security.
mindless automatons,
Ha,
but
ha, ha.
we do see these bots have the ability to communicate.
Oh.
So sure, they're gonna count for our purposes today. When the great
But that's literally just the basic programming they'll set with.
robot revolution gets going, 36 were dispatched to deal with it. However, when they run into WALL-E and get killed, only 35 of them are seen. I guess one of them must have run away like a coward. Probably the best move, given everything that happened. But we're not done yet. Lifeguard bot, who ironically isn't waterproof, dies when splashed with just a little bit of water. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention spoilers. WALL-E himself dies at the end of the movie. But Eve manages to bring him
He's
back
rebuilt,
online, so he
technically.
doesn't count for us today.
Yeah,
That catapults
see?
WALL-E into the lead of our competition with 38 deaths and brings our running Pixar total to the triple-digit mark at 104. Just incredible stuff. And speaking of incredible, well, let's buckle up and tackle my favorite Pixar film, The Incredibles. Fun fact,
Okay,
I've
here we
probably
go.
seen this movie like 40 plus times, and all of the DVD extras too. Anyway, just to meet this head on, when you think of death and The Incredibles, this is probably the first scene that comes to mind. Here,
Yeah,
Mr. Incredible
Kronos.
learns that at least 15 of his super colleagues were eliminated by the Omni Droid, which is a great start for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would be, but we can't count these based on our rules.
Oh,
All of
what?
these deaths happen off screen before most of the movie takes place, so sadly, they
Ah.
don't count. But
Damn it,
don't worry,
fine.
because there are way more we can count. For example, there are the 5 supers that Edna tells us died in various cape
because of the capes.
which we do see on screen in flashbacks, so they do count. Edna's right, y'all.
No kicks.
And of course, Syndrome
cakes.
didn't heed this advice himself and is also done in by his own cape, leaving us with 6 confirmed deaths. But it's not just supers and villains who bite it in The Incredibles. No, there are a ton of totally normal human deaths in here too. In fact, The Incredibles themselves end up dispatching a ton of goons throughout the movie. Most of them just look like they get knocked out or are not outright killed, but not all of them. For example, while breaking into Syndrome's lair, Bob throws a giant robot at 2 guards out front. Realistically, this would probably kill both guards, but one of them shows like a little sign of life as Bob runs by, so we're only going to count this as 1 death for Mr. Incredible. He also hucks a rock at a guard on patrol, causing him to fall off of a multi-story window onto his back. So yeah, he's also super dead. Like father, like son, we see Dash go on a killing spree during the film's second act action set, dashing away from some henchmen and causing a total of 6 people to meet their maker. When Dash and Violet meet up, Violet's force field causes 2 more ships to crash, leading to 2 more deaths. And once the whole family is reunited, they go toe-to-toe with a few more goons, but only one of them we can say definitively dies in an explosion. So right there, that's 11 more kills to add to this film's death count, and we are still going, guys. Yeah, at the climax of the film, we see the Omnidroid attacking a city full of civilians. And before the Incredibles arrive to help save the day, the army does their best to keep the Omnidroid under control, but they aren't doing a great job at it, leading to the deaths of a few soldiers. For example, we see 6 tanks face off against the Omnidroid, likely leading to many of their deaths. Yeah, in director Brad Bird's previous masterpiece, The Iron Giant, they make a point to show soldiers getting out of a tank at the last minute to save their lives, but they specifically don't with The Incredibles. And while we only see 1 tank definitively blow up, considering the fact that by the time The Incredibles arrive at the city, the Omnidroid has moved on to a new neighborhood, that heavily implies that it dealt with the rest of these tanks with ease. So, okay, how many soldiers can we say died in these 6 tanks?
I think an average tank crew is about 4 to 6. I think it's I'm gonna say 4. Well, 1 to fire the gun, 1 to load it, and 1 to like scope around, and 1 to drive it.
Based on the look, these tanks appear to be some variation of the M41 Walker Bulldog tanks, which were designed to have 4 operators. 6 tanks times 4 operators per tank. That's 24 more kills to add to the list. And on top of that, remember this iconic moment where Frozone asked,
"Where is my super suit?"
Helicopter.
Well, that crash in the background is more than just comedic timing. That, my friends, is an attack helicopter falling out the sky. So yeah, we need to add at least 2 more kills for the pilot and gunner here too. And last but not least, well, we have to count the Omnidroid as well. Yeah, that's right. While the Omnidroid looks like a cold, lifeless robot, we're told that it's made up of a true artificial intelligence. In the end, it chooses, on its own, to betray Syndrome and save its own skin. Or shell, I suppose. That's a character with agency if ever I've seen one. So when it's defeated at the end of the movie, that's the 44th and final kill for The Incredibles, bringing our total Pixar kill count to 148. Oh, and just to clear things up real quick, I know Bob destroyed an Omnidroid earlier in the film, but it looks like its power cord just got ripped out. I'm assuming the same artificial intelligence is still powering the final one as this initial one, since the whole point was to learn, right? So yeah, it's only...
I mean, from what I could tell, he uses the same AI throughout all incarnations of it, but regardless of the power core being destroyed or not, everything would be backed up into some kind of memory card within the droid. And so, when one would be terminated, he would probably gather it, bring it back, like learn what failed, to upgrade it, yada yada yada.
Gonna count as 1 kill despite ripping itself inside out. And speaking of, our second to last film is Inside Out. So this one's a bit weird because most of the characters in this movie are, well, thoughts, emotions, memories, that sort of thing. But to keep to the spirit
of... Okay, but seriously though, this movie would only have 1 death. And I'm talking about Bing Bong. He's literally the only death in the whole movie.
We're going to consider characters like Joy, Sadness, and Bing Bong as living. And if they somehow disappear, that counts as a kill. Cool? Cool. Speaking of, well, we all remember the tearjerker that is Bing Bong's death, so that's 1 right off the bat here for Inside Out.
It's the only one.
Well, maybe we shouldn't be too upset because Bing Bong himself got a kill on his own before he died, blowing this cloud person out of existence. Not to be outdone, Joy also does a similar thing to another cloud person later in the film. Just
okay, so
brutal.
That's 3 then.
The real numbers start adding up when we count Riley's imaginary boyfriend.
Oh no! Not the boy from Canada.
It's offensive because it denies his existence. We talked about this.
Oh, sorry. Riley's...
That voice. I feel like I know that voice.
Canadian boyfriends. Near the end of the film, when Joy is trying to get back into HQ, she creates a tower of boyfriends, and by my count, this tower is roughly 42 boyfriends high. And while they do help Joy achieve her goal, as a result, they seem to all end up tumbling into the memory dump just like Bing Bong. So, Yeah, add them to the count. And
Really?
before you feel too bad, just remember.
I would die for I would die for I would die for
So, hey, they got their wish. Anyway, this means that Inside Out just scoops
Fine,
by The
fine.
Incredibles as the deadliest
Fine.
Pixar movie so far. But none of these movies, and I mean none of them, hold a candle to our final Pixar film. The deadliest Pixar movie with the highest kill count is, drumroll please,
Alright, what is it?
Finding Nemo. Yes,
Wait,
really. Not
what?
only do a whopping 2/3 of all Pixar deaths happen just in this one movie, but they all happen in just one scene. And what
Oh, damn it, he's counting the fish eggs! The fish eggs!
is that scene? Well, it's the cold open that sets up the entire course of the movie, where Marlin loses most of his kids and his wife, Coral. At the beginning of Finding
damn
Nemo,
it.
we learn that
Fine.
Marlin and Coral laid.
It's over 400 eggs.
Now, already, that's a lot, and it could mean a ton of different numbers. Over 400 could mean 1,000,000, but that's a little bit ridiculous, so instead, we're gonna take this literally and count 401 eggs here. Now, at first, it might seem weird that I'm counting eggs because, I mean, well, they're eggs, after all, but the world of Finding Nemo operates just a little bit differently, it seems. For example, when Marlin starts talking loudly, Coral warns.
You're gonna wake the kids.
She calls them kids, implying that even though
I think she was just trying to be, a little cutesy with them, because, again, the eggs, the zygotes, they're not technically sleeping nor even fully sentient at this point. But then again, now this is kind of getting into the whole talk of when does an embryo become a fetus, become a child debate, and I don't want to get into that crap.
they're just eggs, they sleep and are aware of their surroundings. This actually lines up with the real-world research, which has shown that fish eggs are able to chemically communicate when they're ready to hatch. So while they're helpless in this situation, those eggs should count for our grand total death count. So when that barracuda comes along and eats them all and Coral, we're counting that as an astonishing 401 deaths. Not 402 because obviously Nemo survives, so Coral is taking his place there. This absolutely dwarfs the rest of the Pixar library. Finding
I knew it
Nemo,
was
more
gonna be
like
the fish
finding
eggs.
guilty of
I was wrong.
quadricentennial homicide, am I right? Can I get a high five? Hello? So after going through every single Pixar film frame by frame, Finding Nemo is the undisputed deadliest film in the canon with 401 deaths. And if we add up the entire studio's output, we get a great...
Technically 402 because of the one at the end. And that little, gulp guy consumes the anglerfish.
total of, drumroll please,
I'm gonna put that down in the comments, let them know.
594 deaths. You know, honestly, less than I was expecting, especially since the Disney death count got into the hundreds of thousands. But, well, what did I expect from movies rated G and PG? Or, you know what, maybe the mouse just wanted to hog all the murder for themselves. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on...
Alright everyone, that is going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.